But then you eventually settled for the clarinet, saxophone, and keyboards. So did you begin those at a young age as well?
No. Well, actually, piano I began with. So when I was 4, I started learning the piano with Yvonne Boness, who was a wonderful music teacher who died a couple of years ago. I did her funeral.
Wow.
She was 100. But she was a violinist and she had a gold tooth. And her party piece was the Brahms Hungarian dance. Da, 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 da. I can remember her playing it with this flashing gold tooth. And that inspired me to take up the fiddle as well. So I actually was piano and then violin, but I was hopeless at the violin. And then, because I was a chorister by then and in chapel a lot, the organ came along. And the saxophone actually didn't come along until I was older, and I got run over. And with the compensation, I bought a saxophone, and that's how I taught myself, not very well, but that's the order in which it came.
And there seems to be this sort of fearless curiosity towards thinking that actually I can explore this by myself. I can learn an instrument by myself, when we're so eager to find teachers. And I think that's really interesting.
Fearless is one word for it. I mean, it's interesting now at 58 having music lessons again. So I have a weekly accordion lesson with Yanis, who's this wonderful teacher. And I have the discipline now that I lacked when I was younger, I think, to do the solid work, just to kind of get something, securely before I try to move on to something else. I realized in the past, so much of what I was doing was kind of rushing forwards too quickly and not actually acquiring the necessary technique. So I would constantly run into a brick wall when I thought I can't do that. I would have to go back and just practice octave scales or something really quite, not elementary exactly, but fundamental. I'd skipped over before.
Yeah, and I suppose that's a trait that even as a professional musician myself, that I think as the years go by, I find that I'm more now in tune with the actual word practice, and where you're really knuckling down. Whereas as a youngster, you just want to be trying everything and firing off in all directions, which isn't a bad thing, of course, but you're eager to try as much as possible.
But it's interesting now because I wish I hadn't been so in a hurry to kind of cut a dash, because I've discovered that the basis of playing decently is technique. I have a friend of mine, Neil Back, who used to play rugby for England, who's a darling, and we were talking about performance, and he said, perfect preparation leads to perfect performance, which of course is so obviously true. But I've tried to keep that at the forefront of my mind now, is just to be properly prepared before I try something.
Yeah. And then, of course, your experience as a choir boy, that there must have been a kind of very different discipline. Am I right there? Or
Yeah.
What did that feed into yourself, whether it's through listening or just the presence of being in a different type of acoustic and a different environment?
Well, I think what was interesting about it was that my music making until I joined the choir was a solitary enterprise. And then when I joined the choir, of course, I was making music with other people, which for me has always been, when on a good day, as close to heaven as we will get on earth, it seems to be. On a bad day, more like the other place. But the thing I enjoyed it so much. I loved being in chapel. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the stories. I loved the people. Had no faith whatsoever, not for a second. I thought it was clearly a fairy tale, a load of nonsense. But I liked the atmosphere, if you see what I mean. And I was very competitive. And the boy trebles in my school choir were very, very competitive. And they used to reward us with coloured ribbons with our medals, depending on where we, Royal School of Church Music. And I coveted the fat red ribbon around which hung the medal of the head chorister, which eventually I attained. But I think there was my sort of ambition and competitive fires were stoked by singing. It's an interesting one, isn't it, about singing with other people in a way in which you have to subsume to the corporate project, while at the same time being mindful of such opportunities and advantages that may come your way. I was lucky also that I had a good treble voice when I was a boy, so I just didn't really have to work very hard for that to sort of advance my cause.
Do you still sing?
Yeah, I love singing. I
Yeah.
sing church music now, and I've sung it's when the Messiah comes around every year. I realise I have sung every part at various stages of my physical development. But I settled on bass, but then I had music lessons a few years ago, singing lessons a few years ago, and I'm discovered as a tenor. So I sing tenor now, and I love to sing in an ensemble. I miss it so much. And on All Souls Day, we sang one hymn, Be Still My Soul, tune Finlandia. And it was the first time we were socially distanced, the first time I had sung with other people in 8 months. And I was moved to the point of tears and couldn't sing, actually.
That's amazing, amazing. And that was, together in a space or virtually done?
So we were socially distanced in church. So on
Yeah.
All Souls evening, on the evening, we have a service. We invite
Got
everyone
it.
for whom we've conducted a funeral in the previous year. So
I
lots of bereaved
understand.
people in church. So it's very moving anyway. And also this year, I lost my partner. My brother lost his wife. So it was particularly keen. But we were together in church, and we were in darkness. There was just candles lit on the altar, one for every person who died. And then there were just 8 singers, I think, and we sang Be Still My Soul. Really simple. Actually, it's Sibelius. You think it's simple, it's actually not that simple. But, that sounds simple without being simple.
Absolutely.
And it was lovely.
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine. And it just seems such a powerful existence in a way that we are living, because it's opening up our senses to be so magnified, and a kind of presence that we have with each other that isn't in a way perhaps confined to a particular religion or belief. It's just simply that human need for connection.
I love that idea that that song preceded speech, that we sang to each other before we spoke to each other, because there seems to be something so primordial almost about just that reaction of someone singing at you and you singing back and then singing together. It's just so stirring.